We're going to kick off our next panel very quickly, which is really going to be about NaaS use cases and service bundling trends. I'm here to introduce Jitesh from IDC. So come on out, panelists.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Hope everybody is having a great show. We learned a lot about all the technological advancements that are happening from a NaaS perspective. We learned about autonomous networks, and now we're going to talk about the use cases. So what I would like to do is invite our esteemed panelist, Michael Kearns, the Chief Strategy Officer and founder of Amartus. Please come back up on stage again. Ricky Choi, he is the Director of Product Marketing Management from Cisco. Susan White, the Head of Strategy and Portfolio Marketing from Netcracker. And Paul Ruelas, AVP of Strategy Connectivity from Verizon Business. Well, thank you for joining us this morning. And I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about is the use cases and the trends, bundling trends that we have. So let's get right into it. What specific NaaS use cases do you support? Example, SD-WAN, SASE, cloud connectivity. And more importantly, will satellite, from a connectivity perspective, play a role in the future? And I would like all of you to maybe chime in on this one. Michael?
So, yeah, on the last presentation, I think I mentioned a few that we were working on. It's quite a diverse one, so we have satellite, sort of flog. And the satellite industry had a good opportunity to come in with the modern approach, So, satellite offering carrier Ethernet or IP services, connectivity is now a mainstream, right? So, we got it. It's not just, I don't even think it's just a mainstream for connecting remote sites. I think it's a mainstream for connecting, you'll see, the likes of Starlink and things like that, they're offering competitive broadband in some areas as well, So, and that's one use case. So, using that as a new way to connect, which we maybe didn't have before, to different places and different locations. The other one is kind of looking at your more traditional, network services, portfolio, like internet access services, the carrier Ethernet, the TWDM, the IP services. All of these are something we're involved in actually delivering as a NaaS service. And then, as I mentioned in the last presentation, it was like looking at extending that to delivering the full end-to-end overlay, underlay, and extra services that you might have associated with that, Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Ricky, would you like to go?
Yeah, so as you all know, Cisco has kind of been in the industry in all kinds of NaaS areas, for many years now. In the SD-WANs area, we acquired the Viptela way back in the day, now known as Catalyst SD-WAN. We also have Meraki SD-WAN, SASE offerings. We have our SSE offering, and formerly known as Umbrella. The one thing is that constantly changing is the names. The products evolve, but the names just keep changing. So they have that, as well as the other services that we support as well. And I think that one of the things that we're really proud of is leveraging that product portfolio and helping SPs tie in their services with the enhancements of our products and services, and really get to that full NaaS integration and get to that nirvana where you have the API controls and getting those services on demand with partners as well. And so those are the areas that we play in. With respect to the satellite question, like Michael said, that's a very interesting development in recent years, right? Especially with the LEO space and all the carriers announcing their partnerships with satellite companies as well, the traditional carriers, right? And it does offer a unique opportunity, right? An alternative to traditional terrestrial connectivity mechanisms, right? Like fiber and wire and cellular. It offers a lot of capabilities in areas where fiber is just not worthwhile to install, or cellular coverage is just not able to cover it due to terrain, et cetera. But there's also challenges, right? What we've seen, at Cisco is that when the dish in Starlink's case, right, is switching from one constellation to another, you see these latency pops all over the place, right? And the good news is we've actually, fixed this problem way back in the day with our WAN acceleration products, right? And so we're leveraging a lot of those type of techniques back in to help our customers and SPs solve for those use cases as well. In fact, we wrote a white paper and a config guide, right, to specifically around those spaces, right? And so, again, we're excited about how we partner with our SP partners to leverage all of these new technologies and help them deliver those solutions as a NaaS consumable model to their customers as well.
Okay, thank you. Sue, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, sure. So in Netcracker, we basically support any NaaS use case because we're sort of the level above. We provide that automation layer above any SD-WAN, any SASE, any security, any cloud-based service. It doesn't really matter. So we provide that automation layer and then all the front-end systems that are used by the enterprise customers or the service partners, because obviously NaaS is not just to enterprise, it's the whole ecosystem. So that's what we're doing. And obviously we've heard a lot over the last few days, the complexities of that, because we hear enterprises say, hey, I can get maybe SD-WAN, then I have to go to another place to get my security in another place here. And that's what we're trying to do, unify and bring all that together so you have a common way of viewing that, whether it's through a portal, whether it's bringing APIs directly into business processes at the other side. So that's one key area that we do. Now satellite, I mean, gosh, there's just stories every day coming out of new satellite partnerships. I know Verizon making partnerships with satellite companies, and there's a few different things happening. There's a few reasons why this is becoming a hot topic, and one of it is low Earth orbit satellite, because you now get the very, very low latency and high bandwidth if you have many satellites orbiting. So this is starting to be a bit of a game changer, because in the past, this low Earth orbit isn't new. It's been around for ages, but it's now affordable, with SpaceX and other launch capabilities. So it's sort of, and we have innovations as well with GEO and MEO satellites. So suddenly you're sort of having much more play, much more ability to support the kinds of fiber-like services, 5G-like services that were just not possible before. So I think that's very interesting. That's one part, but the other part is direct-to-device. And this can be an absolute game changer in our comms industry, because now whether it's like an ordinary mobile phone or an IoT device that can be in any vertical, you can seamlessly connect from from the mobile network through to the satellite network. You won't even know it's happened. It'd be like switching through Wi-Fi. Now, of course, that's an emerging area. There's a lot of standards that are needed. There's a lot of complexity there, but the work is happening. We know there's been some announcements with various companies right now. So we think this is going to bring a lot of new opportunities, and absolutely in the enterprise space there'll be a lot of interest there. So that's basically why in Netcracker we're very much involved in that. We're working with our partners to help them put the networks in place for that.
Well, thank you, Sue. Appreciate that. Paul, would you like to?
Sure. What was the question again? No, I'm joking.
Use cases.
Yeah, with our SD-WAN, with our NaaS, it actually encompasses all the use cases you mentioned, right? So I think I talked yesterday about this. We have a little bit more of a liberal view of NaaS, right? And when I looked at what was needed in the industry, what our customers are looking for, really, I focused our NaaS on reducing the friction of consumption of these services, right? And making sure that they're chained together. And as I spoke yesterday, really about the unified service definition, you don't have to buy it, right? It's extensible, it's modular, it's programmable. I want you to buy more of the stack. In fact, to me, if you buy 1 + 1, you should get a 3 out of it from our solution set, right? With our portal integration piece. So everything from SD-WAN through to SASE extensions, and if you don't want all of it, if you just want like a CASB or ZTNA, we've got those services. And cloud-based firewalls have been around for years. And we even do now actually a NaaS managed takeover, MTO. We work with customers and take over the equipment. Maybe we don't manage it today. Maybe it is there, but we actually pull it all together for the customer and then give them the same NaaS SLAs that I spoke about, be able to have all the patching pieces and tie it all together. And then the access piece, to me, it's what I mentioned yesterday too, is ubiquitous access. I don't care whether it's wireline, whether it's wireless, public, private, whether it's bring your own broadband, right? Satellite even. We honor all these solution sets. And you know, on the satellite side, we've had MEO and GEO for, I mean, almost 20 years. We've been leveraging it. I've got many customers today that use it, but it's expensive, it's slow, but it fills in a need. So I talk about things like dots on a map, right? As we have to get you back to the network, get you back to your workload, I need to fill out all the dots on the map. And to me, any type of connectivity makes sense, whether it's the broadband components I mentioned, whether it's fixed wireless access, or now even LEO. We see a big opportunity being able to bring those things as quickly as possible back to the proper place to get that data and to transform the customer's experience there. So really excited to see where it goes. We've already had trials with LEO, and we have our customers turning up. And a lot of them too are using it in a primary, secondary as well, where they have that backup situation. So they've got a primary maybe at a broadband site, secondary FWA or LEO, and now they've got that business continuity. And it's, you know, it's SD-WAN-ish, it's not active-active, it's active-passive, but because you have that high-level order of the application visibility, you're switching much quicker than having a traditional router turn time, you know, hold down timers and a route shift there, so.
Oh, thank you. No, those are very, you know, insightful cases that you guys have described, and we find that same type of need when we talk from our research to the enterprise customers, especially in the mid-market, upper end of the mid-market, lower end of the mid-market. And I want to peel the onion a little bit more and talk about which specific verticals or industry are you seeing more NaaS use cases? And if you could maybe elaborate, are you getting a lot of requests, especially in the mid-market segment, to help with the designing and the migration aspect from a facilities base into a NaaS type of an offering and a service offering? Would you like to start, Paul?
Yeah. So what I see there is, and I talked a little bit yesterday, is that if you build your NaaS modular correctly, it can conform to just about any vertical, right? You can mix and match the services. And we've even started using it, so we started off in our global enterprise, that's where it really had a lot of success. And then we're shifting down to that mid-market tier. What I find interesting there is, it starts off a lot of times with a SASE conversation, right? Oh, I gotta have SASE. And then invariably, as I start talking, it turns into really a NaaS conversation. So I really get, it's curious, even now, I rarely get any customer coming at me saying, Paul, I need NaaS, I have to have NaaS. But when I start talking to them, I'm like, so, you need this, you want this? They go, yeah. I'm like, well, that's NaaS. You don't have to call it NaaS, but we're gonna put that together. So I think the use cases I've seen, and I mentioned the three top that I found recently that were just successful, was the manufacturing piece, where a lot of the manufacturing folks are moving to IoT type devices, right? They've got a lot of legacy out there, and they're trying to modernize their workloads, modernize their logistics pieces. We saw the one, I told you, retail. The retail is huge, and that's a lot of broadband and NFWA. But we talk about kind of the high-low problem that we've got in the industry. So I talk a lot about broadband and FWA for the commodity sites, these smaller sites, but then we hear everybody else start talking about the other side of the equation, the bandwidth sites, where I've got my 100 gig, my 400 gig, 800 gig coming, and of course our dark fiber services. So it really depends on those customers, where they're going and where they're coming from, and you're able to right size the modularity of NaaS to be able to give them the most appropriate access for that most appropriate user, site, or device that's on there in the application that they're using.
Sue, would you like to chime in?
Yeah,
there?
so I agree with Paul in that, you know, the NaaS offering, if you like, should be completely flexible and modular. It's not about being specific to any industry, and I think that's what a lot of service providers that we work with need. They want something where the majority of it is the similar, that all the automation, the processes, you know, you want to be able to, of course, onboard and bring in different kinds of specific services that might be very applicable to that vertical, but the way you onboard them, the way you bring them in, the way you connect to them should be the same as it is for others. So I think that's what we're seeing. It's almost like it's a horizontal type of solution that should be applicable. We have solutions working in oil and gas. We have solutions working in you know, agriculture, in healthcare. It doesn't really matter, because the horizontal is more or less the same. And some of them, I agree, are very simple. A lot of them are SD-WAN and a bit of security or SASE, and then they kind of morph and they grow, and the capabilities grow. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, I agree with the guys here. And I think it is really having the tools and the components available to you to assemble the network, that's needed for that particular vertical. So I know we had some conversations earlier this week about some specific requirements, say in the medical industry, where you have to have 100 meters between each entry point into the facility. That's a unique requirement for that industry. And there's, if you're in a large manufacturing facility, you don't want to be going through the same duct if you have multiple, and it's an automated manufacturing. So you need to be able to click the buttons to make sure you can order the right things and have all of those available to you. Satellite, obviously, we talked about. That's going to be applicable to oil rigs or cruise ships or companies like that. So you have those in your toolbox to be able to assemble the right service offering.
Thank you. So as a former cable guy, bundling. Let's talk about bundling. I love bundling. So I want to start with Ricky, with you. So in your experience, how are you bundling the services, whether it's software, hardware, lifecycle management, and how you, from a NaaS perspective, is the ROI clear to the customers? Are they willing to take that step and invest?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, so in terms of bundling, right? At Cisco, we're very much a vertically integrated company, right? So we make our own hardware, we make our own software. We have a robust, professional services arm in Cisco CX, right? To help our customers implement some of these solutions as well, right? And our customers are twofold, right? So we have the enterprise customer, but we're a channel sales company, right? So the biggest customers are the folks, my esteemed colleagues here on the stage, right? And really, how do we help them, with creative bundles that make sense for their customers, right? And so with NaaS, there's the technology part of it, right, which is the API integrations that I talked about before, and how do we expose those APIs to our partners and our customers, and have that on demand, on and off. But the other part of NaaS is the commercial part of it, right? Is how do we get to a commercial offering that works well with our SP partners and our customers, where they can, pay per use, right, of those services, and not have those, those traditional upfront capital investments, et cetera, upfront, right? And so, that's what we've done a lot of work with our partners on, is how do we bundle the solutions together, all in a way that it makes sense from an API perspective and a consumption perspective that our SPs can expose to their customers, but also how do we bundle our contractual offers, right, together, so that it's a way that helps our partners, our SPs, pay as they grow, right, if you will, right? So maybe it starts with, some customers, and maybe in the mid-markets that you asked before, where they just have an SD-WAN use case, right, at the beginning, but then they start seeing, oh, I need SASE, right, or I need, collaboration, or I need these things, and as they layer on top of that, how do we make it so flexible that, it's actually incentivizing the customers to add those services layer by layer in a non-traditional, 3, 5, 7 year type contract type of ways, right? So that's what we're seeing a lot of our energy focused on here.
Yeah. So, if I may probe you a little bit more on that. So one of the things that we find in our surveys is the customers are saying, yeah, we want to do it, we understand the benefit of it, but the ROIs are not very clear. Mm-hmm. So in your opinion, how are you helping your service provider partners in helping define those ROIs? And are you successfully able to see those ROIs come to fruition?
Yeah, so it's early days right now. We just started on some of those contractual works. What we're seeing is, how we're helping our SP partners understand the ROI is it's really the speed to market, right? So the idea is with traditional ways of buying network and selling networks, the ROI is much longer, right? So you buy a piece of, as an example, you buy a piece of equipment and you buy the license on it, and that piece of equipment has to be amortized over 3, 5, 7 years, and usually by year 3 you break even, right? And then it's all profit thereafter, right? But as customers move to these more on demand, more cloud-like consumption models, where they can just swipe a credit card on AWS and spin up a service and then turn it off, that poses a challenge, right? So how do you stretch out the hardware piece of it and the license piece of it in order to get profitability faster? And that's where we're helping our partners. And when I say the commercialization part of it, is how do we get the hardware a lot less costly up front, right, for them to commit to, and maybe we go into a hardware as a service type of model where it's it's leasing, capital leasing model type of thing, where it's more monthly based with no commits, and then incentivize the partners and the customers to add services, right? So the the ROI for our partners is really not the equipment itself; it's the services that pull through revenue through the services itself, right? So very much like the just Gillette razor kind of mentality, or the ink printer and ink cartridge mentality, right? Whereas the CPE itself is really kind of almost a loss leader, right? But really together, it's the services that we put on top of it long term. How do we get that ROI and prove that to the partners that is that's a much faster path to the return on investment. And yields a greater growth potential in terms of adding more managed services.
Thank you. Paul, would love your insights.
Yeah, great. So the interesting, I talk a lot about the modularity of NaaS, but one of the things that can happen, and I saw it happen early on, is you can paralyze both sales and the customer with too much choice, right? They look at this menu and they go, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? So what we did is our basic NaaS bundle, and as I mentioned yesterday, we did it via the way the SD-WAN vendors did it. They do site types. Everything from extra small through extra large. And with that, you get a basic device, managed device, whether it's an SD-WAN, SASE, maybe it's a thin edge device, maybe it's something like an FWA modem with security, right? All kinds of things with that device. And then WAN links, everything from a single WAN link all the way through 4, if you want, belt suspenders there. And with that becomes your SLA for your availability. Now with that, then you can then layer on, you can upshift, you can add things like DDoS, you can add things like SASE services, you can go up and down the gamut, right? That really makes a lot of sense for customers to be able to then add and subtract, and then the way we do it with them, we just talk to the customer and say, look, here are the site types, let's look at your sites, and generally they're gonna have 3 to 4 types, maybe one, there's a couple outliers, but they generally will fit into that box of what they're looking for. And when you put that together, then it just lays it out for the ROI for the customer of, hey, this is a good deal, plus, think about this, not only is the deal with the bundle, but you also get all the portal pieces that I mentioned, the AI ops, the insights, the security tracker, right, the health alerts for the device alerts, all that comes included. And if you're DIYing that yourself, it's a lot of work. Now, some of the higher level customers in my global enterprise, we talked before, they don't want the portal itself, but they still can consume all of those AI ops components from APIs. So, ask some of my customers to spend more money than I do on my portals, right? But they still want that data, the information, the insights. They want to be able to pull that data out for me, be able to bounce it against Datadog maybe or something else and come back and then make a change within the network via an API. So that's where, to me, the ROI really shows of the flexibility that the customers have and the art of the possible of them being able to move up and down the stack depending upon what their needs are of their users and their applications.
Got it. Thank you. Sue, would you like to add to this?
I mean, bundling obviously, has implications, top to bottom. And one of the things that's really critical for that is having first of all, a unified product catalog that allows this bundling to happen. That's not just telco services. It can be any service. It can even be, software as a service. If you think of, all the sort of office applications, Zoom, whatever, doesn't matter. But it's basically bringing all this together, and that feeds everything. That feeds your quotation systems. And we're working a lot more now on the B2B side with the more sophisticated, configure price quote systems that really guide you through that service design. And that's very critical because it brings in all these options, whatever you've, brought into your network, whatever partners you have, whatever options you have, all the pricing stuff's in there. You can guide your customers very easy through, and, it brings a lot more, not full automation because these deals are incredibly complex, but you start to be able to simplify and bring a certain amount of automation into that service design, all the way through to your catalog feeding, automating orders, and then all down to your provisioning. So that I think is very critical in being able to work that. And just mentioning on the ROI side, one of the things we've done, even at the front end, even when you're doing these very complex designs and your customer dictates how many sites, what types of security, what types of reliability, and all these kinds of things. We've built in a profitability analysis for the operator to make sure that they first of all know what kind of deals they can give, and they know that it can bring a certain return, and they're not going to put in a solution, if you like, that suddenly is going to be a nightmare for them. So that's the kind of thing we've built in to help these deals progress and be profitable.
Thank you. So no conversation these days is complete without talking about AI and machine learning. So, Michael, back to you.
Okay.
How do you see AI and machine learning play a role from a NaaS perspective?
Yeah.
How integrated is it in the offering today? Not just your offering from your company, but overall in the industry. What are you seeing? Where do you see it going?
So for us, actually, we've been experimenting with it for a while just to see how we can adopt it to make things life simpler on two fronts. One is in the front end piece, as I spoke at my last presentation about, where you're trying to capture the requirements of the customer and convert it into some tangible sort of offering that they can then purchase. And like this information comes in unstructured formats. You want to have allow the customer to be able to express it in a way that's natural to them. It's not necessarily going to be, I want a SATCOM service and I want some edge. They're not working at that level, many of the customers. So you want to be able to help them to go and take something that's expressed in their own language and convert it into a tangible offering. So that's on the front end. On the back end, we're doing things like around the AI ops. What happens when something goes wrong in the network? Can I actually use sort of chatbot type interfaces to actually try to isolate a problem? Even the customer sitting there in their self-service and they want to figure out what's actually going on with their network. If you can expose some capability through the self-service where they're viewing and observing their network and they can suddenly figure out there's just something got misconfigured in a certain location. Of course, it depends on how much they want to get exposed to that, but they're two examples of what we're working on, I think, and it is very powerful when you see it. Yeah.
So if I may go a little further in that, from a front-end perspective, do you start with the business outcome that the customer is using and back it into the solution? Or is it more like, here is a set of AI capabilities we have, pick one that might be beneficial to you?
So I'm talking more about using the AI to simplify the customer's interaction with the provider. So in this case, it's more about like allowing them to express their needs in a way that's in their world and they're familiar with, and then being able to translate that into tangible entities. In terms of managing the AI in the network, it's another component that can be deployed. So, once you deploy the edge or something, you can deploy some AI in the edge and have some use the AI application. But that's usually deployed as a kind of an application.
Sue, would you like to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, we're, so many areas now we're bringing AI into, and Gen AI as well. So on the AI side, that's what we use when I said earlier about this profitability analysis. It's this pretty complex thing to work out. So we use some AI capabilities in that. We absolutely use things in the back end because to make any NaaS network work, you've got to build all this automation into your regular domains of your network. So anything from anomaly detection, problem solving, and those issues, these networks are getting, obviously more complex. It's interesting, we've been talking a little bit about satellite because when it comes to LEO, the complexity of those networks are on another scale because the satellites are moving orbiting every 90 minutes. They're connecting to stations that are, all the time on the ground. They're connecting to ships. And I mean, it's crazy complexity. And then you have to give SLAs for that, and these SLAs are changing all the time. No point having one per service anymore. That model doesn't, need. So AI, if we don't use AI for that, you literally cannot do it. You're creating a real-time service topology across space and Earth, and it's just not possible anymore. So all of that we're bringing in, but then we're also starting to bring in Gen AI, and I know this just, obviously it's going through its hype, and now we're getting to the stage where we're really deploying it, and we're deploying it for some of our wholesale customers already, and it's really, really good use cases like, when complex invoices where you have a lot of discrepancies on, so you can bring it into that, phase where they can, Gen AI can analyze that invoice and come up rapidly with the answer, the solution, things like that, all the way through to, we even use it when a contract is negotiated. I mean, right now that's still, I would say, a reasonably manual process just because of the complexities of enterprise. But when that contract, is agreed, you can feed that into the tool that will automatically configure things like catalogs. I mean, internal processes that just took days before, and now can be done, in minutes. And you can feed that tool with all the capabilities of how a Netcracker, product catalog works. So you can easily feed that in. So these are real practical use cases, but and each one doesn't sound like it's saving a lot of time, but the scale of it is. So it's whether it's internal processes, customer facing, partner facing, or AI, continuing AI, it's kind of everywhere in our solutions right now.
Thank you. So we talked about AI, we talked about network as a service, and as part of these technologies and as they evolve, the amount of data that is collected and the sensitivity around the data is humongous, right? Every customer we speak to, every survey we do, every interaction we have, security is probably one of the top 1 or 2 items on the customer's mind. So I want to start with Ricky, and then maybe Paul, if you could chime in, is how are you embedding security into your NaaS offering? Or how are you considering embedding security? And how critical it is for you to have that and explain that to the customer as we evolve in this new world?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, at Cisco, obviously, security is fundamental to everything we do. I mean, our slogan is if it's connected, it's protected, right? And so it's it's not just a phrase that we use, right? It is fundamental from the ground up, from the chips we select that goes into the boxes, all the way to the software kernels that we use, and all the way up, right? So that part of it, that's fundamental, right? It's like security cannot be an afterthought that you layer on top afterwards, right? It has to be built in all the way through. And a lot of our, SP partners, we see, one of the challenges they see is that, in the past, the controllers that they use to control their appliances in their network was very much a closed system. It was something that they just control and manage the network themselves. And now they're being asked to expose certain parts of these elements to partners and customers through portals, through APIs and things like that. And that offers a lot of apprehension, as you mentioned, right? Like how much do we expose to get, what is the minimum we can expose to get the function we need without giving too much, right? And so that's something that, at Cisco, we've kind of been doing that for a long time, right? We expose APIs to partners, to customers, to third parties, and various integrations throughout. And so that's something that we can leverage that expertise and that foundation to help our SPs and our customers adopt those as well. Even internally, just as an example, right? At Cisco, there's a lot of different products there, but from a security perspective, we see that standardization is very, very important. Right, that is again foundational to the security part of it. Is make sure working with organizations like MEF to make sure those APIs are standardized and secured, so that they can have an ability to we can have ability to make sure that the calls are all the same and robust that way. But even internally, so we've been using leveraging the technologies and standardizations to make sure that we have one security control panel that can push a policy across all our services. So not only if you're buying Cisco SSE in the cloud, firepower firewalls from Cisco, as well as the next gen firewall on a Catalyst switch or a Meraki switch. They used to have different security profiles for each one of them and different security controllers for each one of them. So now we're normalizing that, and so it's one single pane of glass and an API set, right? And so as we expose that to our partners and SP partners, so that they can implement it in their products, it's more unified across the board, right? So you don't have to adjust your APIs for each different product line, right? And we're hoping to drive that standardization across our partnerships externally as well with all of our partners.
A 30-second follow-up.
Sorry.
How are you convincing them that you're not going to share their data in any way with any other providers or for any other use?
That's a tough question.
Sorry, it was not in the syllabus. I apologize.
Yeah, I mean, we don't collect customer data in our network, right? All of our services that we offer, I mean, it's equipment services that the service providers provide or the customers manage themselves, right? And so all data collected from a data residency perspective, it's owned by the partner or the customer, whoever owns it. We don't analyze any of it, right? Even in support cases, as soon as that attack case closes, we don't know anything else, right, about it, right? So, that should give our customers some solace there in terms of where that is. But that said, all the data that the partner collects, it's not only a liability, but it's also an opportunity for them, right? A lot of SPs use their data for marketing purposes, for advertising purposes, and different purposes as well. So there's, it's a double-edged sword as well, right?
Paul, would love your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I know we're close to time there. Very similar to Ricky, some of our security postures, full RBAC controls, right, to make sure that you only have the data that you need access to, and then zero trust. We implement zero trust across the board, right, so that when the customer wants to make a change, they're allowed to make the change, but we all have that controller that can see it. The NOC sees the same tools, so it's one unified vision across it. So there's no disconnect about what's being changed and alerts. And then of course we run full SIM services, right, XDR, SOAR type services internally to make sure, and even red teams, right, to make sure that we've got the security posture there.
Any final thoughts from any one of you?
I mean, just on the API security, it's getting tougher and tougher. It used to be just doing whitelisting and things like that. Now people are very nervous about APIs, and so whenever we do a project and we have to expose APIs, the list of requirements are growing and growing.
Is huge, definitely.
And it's bigger than the implementation of the actual APIs into the back office system. Sometimes just getting that piece right, And it's ever evolving. It's continuing to.
It's going to be.
You got new requirements as they come. They come back and say, now we got to move it up a level. It's getting tougher.
Yeah, I think this whole, like I said before, the standardization helps a lot, right? When you're not chasing a moving target, it helps quite a bit on for those.
And MEF had developed a particular standard, a 128, which was very comprehensive, based on open banking standards, which use kind of tokens for each request. So you're not you're really nailing it down to a very fine. That hasn't been broadly adopted, but I think that's where it's heading. It's heading there. Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective, NaaS it's an enormous topic. Yeah, it's got so many piece parts. I think it started quite simple, or at least a lot of people's definitions. I think MEF have done a great job in bringing the bigger definition together. All the service partners working towards other service partners or the enterprise. It's huge. So it's really automating those interactions is the goal. Doing all that with business intent is the goal, but there's a lot of steps to get there in between, and we have to sort of keep plugging away at doing it step by step, because until you get automation behind the APIs in your networks, you're really not going to get automation across those APIs working in any meaningful way. So I think it's it's great that these events happen, and we just need to keep knocking down those pieces to get closer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I started on my NaaS journey about 3 years ago in the concepts, and every year it gets better and better. I get more people asking questions, understanding more, really appreciating the thoughtfulness of putting it together, and then of course the portal experience and the AI apps that we mentioned. That's just, I think it's huge, and the more we iterate, and I mentioned it yesterday, I joke, I tease my router jock friends and my security jock friends. I'm like, I'm going to put you out of business. I mean, my job is to make sure that we can iterate on everything you do and make it even better. So that's where we go.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I want to thank every one of you. I appreciate your participation today, and thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.